Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. And don't forget to subscribe to Candid Stanisci on YouTube. Well, today is going to be a really nice day. We got ourselves a really busy guy that coaches and GMs. Right now, Curt Malawsky is the guy that we have on, GM and coach of the Vancouver Warriors. He was with the Calgary Roughnecks, pretty well-known team in the NLL and a pretty successful one to boot. And most recently, the Langley Thunder. So I guess the first thing we can say is you've been around.
You're right, I have been, yeah.
Here's the first question we actually do ask. I kind of ruined the whole thing that we do. The first question I like to ask is how you got involved in lacrosse, whether that meant picking up a stick or otherwise.
Well, again, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, guys. Yeah, I started in East Vancouver when I was about 5 years old. My uncle played lacrosse, so he was out there with all his buddies, and I had the wood sticks going in the backyard, and that's my dad's brother and Uncle Al, and he just introduced me to the game way back then, and I picked it up, and I think I played my mini tyke in East Vancouver for 2 years, and then ended up in Killarney, and then moved out to Coquitlam. So I'd say my uncle introduced me to the great game of lacrosse.
It doesn't seem like you want to let go of wood sticks. You mentioned it proudly. It seems. I don't know why that is. Why would lacrosse players like wooden sticks?
I think it's just a lot to do with tradition. That's where the tradition of it came, with the wood sticks, and and then you kind of grew up with them, and it's part of the heritage, and you pay homage to the First Nations and stuff like that. With it's just kind of emblematic of lacrosse as the wood stick. So that's why I say it with such pride.
Or they hurt a little more.
Yeah, you get people's attention.
You can go to that side too, Curt. Okay, Gary, get her going.
Now you grew up with Coquitlam Smithbox, and I want to talk a bit about the Coquitlam program. You played your junior there. Let's talk about that program and the coaches and some of your teammates along the way.
Yeah, I moved from East Vancouver, and then I ended up in Coquitlam Minor Lacrosse, and I think I was in Pee Wee novice lacrosse, so 9-10. And, I met a lot of great people along the way playing there, and played my minor there. And then, a little bit different than I am now in Maple Ridge, where your minor program, you don't have a junior A program. So we actually just, all the kids I played together through Pee Wee, Bantam, and Midget, and then intermediate back then, we all got together and played junior, which was pretty special. I played with Paulo Chardulo and Kevin Brunch and Greg Bethel. The names go on and on, Darren Blackmore, Lance Andres. But, I could talk. Those are the guys I really grew up with in my age group. And there were so many more great guys. But, it was a hotbed of lacrosse back there, coming from East Vancouver, playing in Killarney, where there's barely any. You didn't have a lot of teams in the association coming out to Coquitlam. I think we might have had 3 or 4 novice teams when I got there, so it was pretty overwhelming. But then from then on in Coquitlam, just year after year, they started putting out perennial powerhouses, and the program's just been flourishing ever since. And I was fortunate enough to go back. Never got to Minto Cup as a player. Well, I did as a call-up. I played against the Gates in Victoria. I wanted to say that might have been 88. Right. Les Wingrove was our coach. Great man. He taught me a ton. And, I was able to play a little bit there, but I was still young and I didn't get on the floor much. And then, years later, I was able to come back and give back to the community and Coquitlam lacrosse in general, and coach a Minto Cup team in 2010.
How important is that, giving back to the community, in your mind?
It's everything for me. And that's who I am. And that's one of the big reasons I came back to the coach in Vancouver was, British Columbia lacrosse is very, very important, dear to my heart. I'm a huge paid forward guy. I learned from a lot of really, really good people. Terry Sanderson taught me a lot. Billy Monroe, like I said earlier, Les Wingrove. And it was all about just giving back to, what the great game gave me so much. I met my wife back in Brantford when I was playing in the Mann Cup, and I would say that'd be 94. So I'm indebted to the game. I fell in love with the game at a young age, and I'm all about teaching the young guys the great idiosyncrasies of the game, and how great it is for your life, and how great it is for teach you as being a real good person. So I've always been that type of guy, is to just give it back, and have an opportunity to do that in the role that I am in Vancouver. Sorry.
Now you grasped that when junior really, really well. 2-time All-Star, 102 goals, 184 assists. You were a top pick with the Salmon Bellies as well in 92. So you obviously had that knack, that natural ability to go with everything, as well as hard work.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time. You mentioned Smith Box earlier. I grew up like literally just down the street. I was a 5-minute walk from Smith Box, and we'd come home from school, grab our sticks, and go right to the box until it got dark. And then as we got older, we ended up, certain guys kind of fell off in different avenues, and there's a bunch of us that just stuck with it. And we would go on a Saturday and play for 8-10 hours. We'd be there all day long, and especially in the summertime, and everyone would just kind of just come together. And I think just that passion, that practice over and over again, and just having the stick in your hand and just loving it. And I think that really kind of propels the player and myself to a different level where you have a passion for the game. You're willing to put the hard work in, and you spend a lot of time at the box with great people.
Mm-hmm. And you were a role model for your brother too, who was also a Canadian Hall of Famer as well. You played on three teams in 3 different leagues, the same teams. New West, Buffalo of MSL, NLL with Rochester, San Jose, Arizona. Talk about your brother coming up with you and how much that meant, and the camaraderie. Because the lacrosse family is big, but to have your own family there too.
Yeah, it was great to play with my brother. We're pretty competitive growing up. I like to say I leaned on him pretty hard when he was younger, but we spent a lot of hours in the basement banging it off the freezer, and then we called Minto Cup, like 1-on-1 in the backyard. So we were pretty competitive brothers, but we had a lot of respect and admiration for each other. And he just hanging around us older guys, and got to be better and better. And then he made his own name for himself as a premier lacrosse player, and like you said, a Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Famer. He had great vision, he had great feet, good stick. So just having the ability to play with him, alongside with him, was pretty neat. We had our battles against each other, even in a lot of WLA and stuff like that, NLL. So to have the opportunity to play with each other was kind of cool, especially for my mom.
I guess so. Also, between the two of you, 3-man cups, right? You had one in 2001 with Coquitlam. He had 2 of them, 2003, 2005 with Victoria. So quite a lineage for the family.
Yeah, it was good to play the WLA. That's I think some of these great leagues aren't around if we don't have people paving the way for the in the Western Lacrosse Association. I'm a big fan of that league, and the NLMSL is it's been around for a lot of years in Ontario as well. And I think those Canadian grassroots, so to speak, leagues that we kind of all grew up on are a big part of where we are with the PLL and the National Lacrosse League now. So I think it's important that has to be touched on. So be able to play in those leagues with my brother and a lot of the people that we know well, that still are a part of my lacrosse life. It was pretty cool.
That's a big thing with lacrosse, where they get into the community, and the community, if the community loves the game, there is no part way in. You're all in. That's just the way it is in the communities that accept lacrosse as a part of their community.
100%. Like we lived for Saturday nights in Coquitlam playing in the WLA. You knew the rink was going to be full, and there's going to be a lot of people coming out and supporting you. And you see the old timers that are being in the same seat year after year after year, and sometimes I still see them at the senior and the junior games. It's just you nailed it right there. And you look at like Victoria, you look at Peterborough, and some of those really Brampton, those hotbeds of lacrosse, Brooklyn. There's so many of them, and Burnaby was really big too back in the day in junior. So like having those communities and having the community get behind the players and the associations is huge. And the Salmon Bellies I played for them for a few years too. And you look at the Man Cup this year, it was one of the best atmospheres around it. And my playing days are long gone, and we got beat by the Salmon Bellies in the Western Final, but it was just so great for lacrosse to have that venue and have all those people support lacrosse in general. It was pretty cool.
That's playing entertaining lacrosse in the community does help, I think. And when those communities have that on a regular basis, it really does sustain itself.
For sure it does. People are out for whatever different reason, and then it becomes the West against the East, and you're all cheering, and then you got the First Nations team from 6 nations there, and you had all the communities out here in BC supporting them. So it was a really cool experience. I talked to a lot of people that weren't really lacrosse enthusiasts, but said that was one of the best experiences, single games that they went and watched in recent memory. So it was cool.
Very cool.
Let's talk about the WLA, the way it is now and the way it was when you played. It's obviously 2 different things. I know the MSL has gone through a whole lot of morph and change, and some good, some not so good along the way. The WLA has been the benchmark, really, for all of summer ball, in my opinion. What do you think that they have done so different over the years where MSL is not getting it done quite the same.
Yeah, I can't really comment on the marketing or what they do in the MSL, because I don't really, I just see the Eastern Champ come out, but I can talk about the WLA.
Sure.
And I think we got some really good owners in our league, and I think Paul Del Monte's done a really good job. Looking forward to trying to grow the game and try to get into the communities. And I think the Vancouver Warriors have, they've been involved too with the WLA of late, and they're trying to get, Dan Richardson, who's here before me, had pretty strong ties to the Salmon Belly. So just, you try to get the BCLA involved and try to get the young kids out there and make it important and try to make, try to have some of those senior guys coach some of the minor teams. I think that's super important. And the kids can go out and watch those guys play on whether it be a Sunday, Friday, whatever night their home nights are. So I think inclusion with the minor lacrosse has been really big in the WLA. And I just think having good owners and just having, they do their best to try to get the stars to play in the league as much as they can. I know it's been a bit of a challenge with the PLL, but just the way that everybody works together and tries to put the best product on the floor. We're doing a lot of video review now in the WLA where you're not having guys taking liberties on guys. I know some guys are disgruntled with how things go at certain points, but I think overall it's been really good. And I just think the way everyone's bought in from an ownership group and from the teams and through, like I said, through Paul and some of the WLA governors have done a really good job of putting good product on the floor.
Now, you just rejoined Langley this summer for your first year. What got you to come back as a coach for Langley?
I think it's, just ability to be around Robbie Buchan and Ken Buchan, the Buchan family. I didn't know a lot. I knew Robbie. I played with him, and I was part of the North Shore team that went and moved up to the Okanagan to be the Okanagan Thunder, and it then ended up in Coquitlam. But they were making a push for the Mann Cup, and I talked to them last year about coming and potentially coaching. I just didn't want to, I said it at the time, I didn't want to spend 9 days in a hotel in Peterborough, and it turned out to actually be that way. So it was kind of, when it came home, they asked if I would be interested in helping out and seeing what we could do. And like I said, I'm very passionate about the West, trying to win Mann Cups, which we haven't done a lot of in quite some time. So, that part intrigued me. And, Curtis Dixon, Dane Dobie, Frank Chiliano, and the ability to get some of the guys that finally had in the PLL to come later was really intriguing. Those are good friends of mine. So, that was part of it. But again, just I think the Buckins put so much into lacrosse in British Columbia, and they really felt this was an opportunity, and I thought it was a good fit. It's 20 minutes from my house. My younger guy was my oldest, but Cody was playing junior at the time with the Valley Thunder, and I liked how he was treated the year before when he ended up going to they went to the Western final, the BC Junior A lacrosse series against Victoria. So it was just an opportunity that I thought, I'm very competitive, and it was a lot to when I look back, was a lot of commitment to it. But again, I felt really bad that it didn't turn out the way that they wanted to and it was supposed to, and it does bother me to this day. But I thought the Salmon Bellies were worthy of representing the West last year, but just being a part of, they do a great job in Langley, and just being a part of that opportunity to work for them and work with the people that I really like. So it was fun.
Right. Well, that was a great series. The Salmon Bellies and Thunder was just insane. If you're keeping me up till 2 a.m. when I got to get to work at 6, that's nuts. That's absolutely, I wouldn't miss a game. It
was great lacrosse. I think the teams are very evenly matched. The goaltenders both played really, really well. It was, back and forth. And then, have that game 7 in Queen's Park was pretty cool. It was pretty special. It was, again, it was another filled barn, and it was just really good for BC lacrosse. So I thought overall it was exciting.
Well, let's talk a bit about your NLL career. As playing, you played on some fantastic teams between Rochester, Vancouver, San Jose, Arizona, and finally with Calgary. My big thing is, I would say that if we had the system that we had now, you probably had a few more championship cups in your, rings on your finger.
Yeah, potentially as a player. Like we ran into the Toronto Rock in the NLL. We were with Rochester, and we had they were very, very good, very, very well coached team. We were very well coached too. We had some good stars. I think, losing the one in Rochester at home, that was the one that kind of hurts, because I thought that was our chance to win that one. But then some of the Salmon Belly teams, we ran up against some really good Six Nations teams that, had maybe circumstances in the WLA where they were stacking teams in the East a little bit ahead of the West, where the West was not really lending players out like they do now, or helping each other out. Back in the day, it was like the Sambos were the Sambos, and the Berards were the Berards, and the Lakers were the Lakers, and the Annex, so on, and no one helped each other out. Where in Ontario, guys were bouncing from Brampton for a lot of years over to Six Nations for a lot of years, and they're back down to Six Nations. So it's kind of that's a tough part. I think we could have probably won more Man Cups as a player if that circumstance didn't happen. But as far as the NLL, like I said, you run it up against some really, really good teams in Toronto, and they were full marks for winning that. I think the Calgary one that we won in 2009 was super special. We had a great group of guys, and I think I think we would have been winning more cups in Calgary if COVID didn't hit and we had to make some changes in Calgary. I think that's the one that I sit back and I look at, probably outside of my playing days, but as a coach, I really look back and say, man, we could have been a real dynasty if things hadn't gone the way it had gone.
Well, I would say that 2019 team was amazing. And your strategy, you were able to bottle up the Bandits entirely. I was in the press box for that, and of course watching the other one. But you absolutely had them by the horns the entire way. And the longer the game went, the more frustrated they got with your planning.
Yeah, our plan was to beat the Bandits. If they wanted us to react to everything. Durston would come by our bench and he would try to get us going. And the way we approached it as a coaching staff, as a team, was we want to be uneventful. We didn't want to bring the temperature of the game up, because the higher the temperature of the game went, the better the Bandits were. They thrived on chaos. They thrived on, not so much structure. They thrived on that undisciplined lacrosse. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to Coach Tavares and that organization. I just mean that they like to just play scramble ball, which we were a lot more structured and a lot more disciplined. And so we knew going into that series that we needed to make sure that we stuck to our strengths. And, anytime you got a world-class goalie like Christian Del Bianco, he covers a lot of warts and a lot of holes that we might have had in that series, and he was outstanding. And then you look at Dixon and Dobie, and you look at our back end with Salama and Courier, and the list goes on and on. And I'm remiss to not mention everybody on that team, and great coaches been Bob McMahon and Robbie Williams. I just thought, and it was just pretty special there. And yeah, we had a plan, and it wasn't easy going to Banditland, and we wanted that game was kind of, I think it was 2-2 after the half. The score was really low, and we playing right where we wanted to play, and we're taking the crowd out of it. It wasn't the 14-13 game, and we were able just to kind of stifle them and sneak out of there. Our plan was to get out of there, and everyone starts looking around and say what happened, that we were supposed to win that game, and next thing you know, we have a chance to close it off at home. So it seemed to work out.
The irony is that Buffalo won this past year using that strategy. They didn't take stupid penalties. They didn't get lured into dumb things. They didn't play the scramble ball you're talking about, and they wound up winning convincingly in their game 3, because around Banditland it was just kind of that third game thinking deja vu from the year earlier, and that was the key. And they used, I guess, your strategy of how to just leave all the shenanigans to the side and play. I want to talk about your last year, where you finally did win as a player the NLL Championship, 2009. That was a fantastic Calgary team. I believe Cordingley and Sanderson were the coaches just before they washed over to Toronto, and that whole team, that whole year was special.
Yeah, it was a great. We had our head coach accordingly, and Terry Sanderson, two great friends of mine, and Dave Pym did a great job with the offense. And we had a really, really conducive coaching staff that, they're so competitive. Like you talk about being accountable, like you just couldn't help but want to run through the wall for those guys. And they cared so much, and they were legends of the game, and they've been around for so many years. They won championships, and at that point I hadn't won in the NLL as a player. So, despite I was 39 years old, I was all ears. And then you look at the guys that we had, our offense with Josh Sanderson, and we had Dane Dobie and Caleb Toth and Scotty Ranger and Tracy Kluski and myself. We ran 6 offensive guys. And then you had Jeff Shatler coming out the back end, and you had the Carnegie brothers, and you had Matt King. Breider was our leader, and we just had such a great group of guys that it was inevitable. I know we just walked through the playoffs that year, and you just never know what was going to happen the final year when you're playing Casey Powell and a very well coached, Eddie Como team and Matty Vince and that in our ranks. So, I was a little nervous as a 39-year-old, but we just had such a great group of guys that just believed in each other, and it was almost like that year we weren't going to get denied. And so you play a lot of years where you go, I would have loved to win with that group. I think this year, that year, it was really nice just to get it done.
Is it when do you realize you're on that good a team? Is it on paper? Do you need to see the guys on the floor?
Just the character in the room. Just you like I said, you look at the Hall of Famers that were on that team, that offense itself.
As early as in the room, you didn't have to wait to see them on the floor.
Right away. You know pedigree. Coming in. I came in 2008. I left Arizona, and Bobby Hamley was trying to get me over to. I think he moved over to Edmonton at the time, and I just looked at the guys that we had, and I know we traded Lewis Radcliffe for Josh Sanderson, and we had Jeff Malawsky there. We just had really good people. Not to say that any of the teams that I've been on before didn't all have great people, but you knew the championship pedigree was there. You knew the opportunity. Brad Bannister was our owner, and to this day, I don't think I'm sitting in front of this screen without referencing Brad Bannister, because he did so much for lacrosse in Calgary, and I don't think the Roughnecks would be. I know they wouldn't be where they are today if it wasn't for Brad. So to have him come out and say, hey, listen, we really want you, and this is what we're doing, and this is how we're going to get things done. That I couldn't have done it any other way. I wouldn't have done it any other way to finish my career as a Roughneck. So thanks to Brad and just putting all those people together. So you knew, like you said, you knew on paper, you just knew who people were and what was inside their chest, and that we weren't going to be denied.
How much of an impact did it have on your decision to be a coach?
Everything. Even now, I love being in Vancouver. I love the Vancouver Warriors, and the Aquilini family's been nothing but outstanding and very, very supportive. And I'm appreciative, humbled, and thankful that I'm working for such a great organization. But being in Calgary for all those years, it was very, very difficult for me to leave. And I still, I always say, once a Roughneck, always a Roughneck. Deep down in my heart, I'll always have that part of being a Roughneck, and be able to have a championship as a player, and be able to have a championship in 2019 as a coach, and just all the great people that I met over the years, and great friends to this day. That organization is, they did a great job, and I like I said, it started with Brad, and anyone that's there. I'm trying to bring what I learned in Calgary, and I reference it all the time in Vancouver, because I don't know really any other way. Aside from being around that success and an organization that had a standard and had a culture and held everybody accountable to a certain level, is something that it's ingrained in me. And I was able to bring that from Calgary over to Vancouver. But I'm indebted to that organization, and especially, like I said, I keep referencing Brad Bannister, just giving me that opportunity. And then you surround yourself with such amazing players, and it's such just amazing people that are part of your DNA and your fabric of what you're going to do going forward as a GM and a head coach.
You can speak to us about the connection between the NLL and the NHL teams that are there, both Vancouver and Calgary. We're partnered with their NHL franchise. How advantageous is that?
Well, I guess you guys want me on to be truthful, and I've always been truthful in all my interviews, that we didn't really get involved with the Calgary Flames at all. Outside of, we're looking at when they were in the building and when we were going to be able to practice, and if they're in the playoffs, out of the playoffs, and if you're going to grab the Roughneck crowd and stuff like that. And I never really got involved with the owners from the owner side, outside of Ken King early days and John Bean. We got to know each other and Mike Moore, those guys, really well by the end of it. But we didn't really get too involved in that stuff. Maybe we met the coach once in a while, and a couple of Monahan played lacrosse before, so a couple guys touched on it. But we don't really get too involved, to be honest with you. And in Vancouver, I've been more hands-on with the ownership group, with the Aquilinis and the whole family. So it's a little bit, I haven't got too involved with the coaches, but there's been talk about, us meeting Rick Tocchet and some of those guys. And so there's been conversations that hasn't come to fruition, but it just seems a little bit more inclusive than it was a little bit in Calgary, but not to say one's right or wrong.
Yeah. Health to execution. There are templates there that both use the same way. So that's why I was asking. But anyway, Gary.
Yeah, fair.
Well, so you took over in 2012 as the head coach in Calgary. I want to get in, since you were coaching through all of these different systems, the one game, the two games, and the mini game, the best 2 out of 3. I want to talk about 2014 and this mini game thing, because obviously it played a huge part But your strategy in game 2 was unique, to say the least. You guys won game 1. You were losing in game 2, and you pulled guys and sat guys and rested guys for that 10-minute mini game. And if it wasn't for Matt Vince that stood on his head, that championship's in your pocket.
I think so. We knew going in that it was going to be a tough game, and I think the mini game was 10 minutes. I can't fully say. I want to say that's what it was, or maybe a quarter. I can't, something like that. But I knew really in the back of my mind is all we need to do is win 10 minutes. We didn't have, unfortunately, we didn't have Jeff Schneider available. I thought about dressing him and putting him in just for that 10 minutes to get the ball off the draw, just for that mini game. But I knew when we were out of it that it was no sense trying to claw back. They were better than we are for the first 60 minutes. And so then it was strategy was just make sure that we get ourselves prepared for that. And we went up by a couple goals, and they hit a couple shots late, but and then we had a chance to tie it. But I think you're right. I think Matt Vince was just absolutely outstanding in that series. But what I remember the most is just the heartache and the heartbreak of our guys after we didn't win. And Bob McMahon hadn't won a national championship before. So that, I'll never forget that. And, that was very, very difficult to swallow. And I think that's what really motivated for me for down the road was just remembering the pain in our guys. And, it was really tough to see their faces and their families. And we got so far, and to be up a couple goals late and then get it snatched away from you. That's probably one of the lowlights of my coaching career. And I still think about the guys to this day and that we didn't get it done. But but that stuff drives you to be better. And that stuff drives you to not to put yourself in that position again. So I appreciate the kudos. I thought we managed it well. It's just, the ball's around, and some nights it's your night, and in 10 minutes, anything can happen.
Yeah, I was there. I was one of the 10 or 20 Calgary fans in there cheering. So I was right at the goal, right on the goal line. I think the third row or something like that. It was crazy. That place was insane for that entire thing. I think my ears were ringing 3 days after. Still, that Blue Cross Arena when it's full is loud.
Yeah, tough place to play. I was at the luxury of playing as a player there, so I knew it's not easy to win in Rochester. So I was proud of the boys, but we fell short on that one.
Right. Which is all the more, when you won in 2019, that, the monkey off your back or whatever, but it's there, that championship. And you guys earned it. Best 2 out of 3, 2 games straight, including the overtime at home. Talk about dramatic in front of that roughneck crowd. That's another huge crowd, right?
Yeah, that was amazing. It was, I knew everybody had their families and friends in, and I knew it was going to be a good night. And you get in there for the warm up and you look up and it's like there's already people in the upper loges, and it was like this is going to be a special night. And it just the way it couldn't have been done. It couldn't have went any. I believe in fate and lacrosse gods, and maybe that 2014 one where we didn't quite get it done down at Rochester, and this one was meant to happen. You get to late in the game and you get Dane Smith on an empty net and you get Courier stopping them, and you're like, how did that end up being like a 4-on-1 and our goalie's out of the goal, but they don't score? And we call a timeout and we're able to calm the troops. And then you bring a guy in like Reese Dutch where everyone's kind of thrown him in the scrap heap, and it couldn't be more fitting than a guy like that with his family all up in the crowd and scores that goal. And you look at Curtis Dixon running around, like I'll never forget that. Chokes me up a little bit just seeing like the way his reaction was. Like he was in utter shock, and he was one of the guys who was absolutely devastated. And you got Dobes and his wife and his young daughter at the time, and Callie's and his dad and Zach's parents just crying, and Christian Del Bianco just absolutely outstanding. And all those things I look at, and to have the heartache of going through that with a bunch of those guys that were still on that team in 2019 and getting on the right side of it. And just being a father that I am now, and just seeing that I always say, like, you see the fathers celebrate with their kids and the mothers, and that's what it's all about. It's just all about the person next to you, and seeing those guys, the dad's just crying and the kids crying, and and they were, got kids, grown men. It was so special. And that, I think that as a coach in this league, it's a job. But you make so many great relationships, and I cared so much about those guys on that team. And we weren't ever going to get outworked on the floor, and we were never going to get outworked as a coaching staff, on the bench. So I just to be able to have it all come together in the city of Calgary was just one of the highlights of my coaching career, no question.
Now, you're notorious for getting the most out of your players. That's known league-wide. It's known, throughout the lacrosse community. Nothing says it more than the last couple of years in Calgary with losing first Dobie, then Dixon, and the team that you had last year, with the exception of a really hot Dylan Ward at the end, you guys go to the Champions Cup against the Bandits.
Yeah.
That's and that's just a testament to the team and the coaching and the camaraderie between you guys.
Yeah, those guys really care about each other. That was one of the biggest things, for the toughest way for me to leave is the guys in that room. I love those guys. I love them to this day. I talk to them, not about NLL stuff, guys, but I talk to them, about day-to-day stuff. And we, I'm still tight with a lot of them. And it was nice to see them when I get an opportunity, but they really cared about each other. And, I'll always preach playing for the guy next to you. And, I talk about sacrifice and commitment, and those guys, they gave up their part of their lives for each other, and they're committed to each other, and they really believed in something. And we lost some great people in Dokes and Dix, and the list goes on. The guys that we lost over the last couple of years, but I think they had something to prove. That we still had a really good group of guys in that room, and again, the MVP of the league in the most important position, Christian Del Bianco. You can do a lot of damage in the National Lacrosse League, and I just think the guys were so selfless. And my coaching philosophy is not to not to look at the scoreboard, not to look at the standings, just kind of play where your feet are. And the guys were just loving seeing each other week after week. And I think we had good systematic play. We were very disciplined, and bringing in Jeff Cornwall was massive. We just made Jesse King being the captain, and Pacer getting into the games that he got in, and we just had so many good people. And you lose Burton, and you bring in Willman, and you got Courier Simpson. And, at the back, we had just a phenomenal group of young men and good people that really cared about. They didn't care about scoring titles. They didn't care about transition defensive players of the year. They just cared about, honestly playing for the guy next to them, playing in the front of their jersey. And as a coach, you put in what you get out. And like, I'm very proud to say that Bobby McMahon has been everything to me as a coach and as a dad. And he just shows me so much. And when he cares so much, and we all care so much, and you can't help but having the players care. Like, we weren't going to get outworked, and none of those guys were going to get outworked. And when it translates through the organization, and I just think it was a special year. And unfortunately, again, we ran into a hot goaltender, and that was a good team from Colorado.
Now you move over to Vancouver, and you bring Bob with you, and talk about the importance of bringing the Vancouver program back to where it was, because it was a great program up to 2013 or 14 in there, and then it had a dip. So with you back there, already you've seen the changes. Just the guys that have come back, the guys you've signed, the list of people on your roster. Man, I'm glad I'm not you. I don't want to have to be choosing who and what, because, man, that will keep me up nights.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult day. It's always a difficult day, the day before the cut down and the cut down day. The guys, you're basically just letting people know that their dreams aren't quite there yet. So that will be tough, and that's the human side of sports that I've always, I always let, back in the past, I'd always make the tough phone calls and let other people make the easy ones. So that will be a tough day, but we just figured, like, the Aquilini family is just given me and our coaching staff and Bobby, assistant GM, opportunity, giving us all the resources. We're not going to lose players over money, which is important. If you want to build a winning franchise, you got to be able to be adaptable. And if you can win games, you put people in the building, then I think that the dollars and cents take care of themselves. So I just think the big thing for us, we want to secure, build from the goaltender out. No one's giving away Christian or Dylan Ward or Jameson or any of the elite players, elite goalies in the National Lacrosse League. So you got to you look at that. I really think that Boldy's one of the elite goalies in the league, and you want to make sure you secure him. So we were able to do that, and then you got to start looking at, you had a great captain in Mitski, and then I want Matt Beers was my captain in 2010. We won the Minto Cup, and he's a good friend of mine. He's a warrior. He's a guy that you want to put in that locker room. And I've had nothing but admiration for Ryan Dilks over the years. And I thought he's an ultimate competitor, an ultimate team guy. He's an NLL, multi-year champion. And then you got a guy like John Lintz that's just unbelievable when it comes to the X's and O's. He's another coach on the floor. He's a superb junior A lacrosse coach, and he's a superb lacrosse mind. And he understands how to win. Winning in Edmonton, and Saskatchewan, and then having the ability to be successful again in Colorado. So then you got a chance with Kevin Crawley, and bringing him in, and he's a premier lacrosse player in this league. So just we wanted to surround ourselves what we felt with just really good people and real good character guys that I can bring a culture and a standard what I want to bring in, but you have to surround yourself with the people that you believe that can carry that on. That you're not inheriting a team that you have to inherit their culture, their way of doing things. We don't have to do that, but we just wanted to make sure that we were bringing in the people that we thought were conducive. I always say, Bobby taught me, good people make good teams, and we targeted those people. And then, we had to make tough decisions. I think we ended up with 11 guys we let go this year. I'm not saying they're not good people, but I think maybe their opportunities are elsewhere. And then we just try to make sure that we have good young guys that can learn from these guys, but yet we still want to be very competitive. And it took me 15 years, or us 15 years to put a real good team in Calgary over the years. You got to build through the draft. You can't panic. You can't make bad decisions at the draft. That takes time. You only get so many first round picks a year. And that's why this year we wanted to make a splash. We ended up getting 4, and I think the future's bright in Vancouver.
Now, you, my colleague, Muffler Mike Koschuk, he's asking a question of, you've had a bunch of veteran players that you've coached elsewhere. How much are you relying on those guys to help get your philosophy across to the guys you haven't coached?
Well, they believe in what we believe in. They're, like I said, they're like-minded in the philosophy that I have and our coaching staff has, and now that the organization's adapted to. So those guys just fit. It's seamless. You know what kind of people there are away. They're family men away from it. Their family's super important. When they come to work, they come to work. They put the time in away from it. They understand the work-life balance. And the league is not that big. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows, what people do away from it. So I think, you get to know the people that I didn't know Keegan Ball at all. I didn't know Brett Minsky at all. I just get to know those guys, and Kyle Killen, and I had Marty there, and Charlotte Beatty's. The list goes on. I don't want to not mention anybody, but just getting to know those people that understand what you're bringing in. And I think they were looking for an opportunity for something different. Like everyone's been so helpful there, and they're embracing the new era.
Now, with no divisions anymore, it's just play more into you guys. You guys have to do a lot of traveling, anyways. So now teams like Toronto could drive to Rochester, Buffalo, Albany here. Now they have to do the same amount of traveling as, say, Vancouver or San Diego or Georgia. Do you think that this evens the playing field a little bit more?
Yeah, you know what? I was always been for a balanced schedule. In Calgary, we've always talked about a balanced schedule, and you sometimes they've been accused of the West not being as strong as the East, and so I think now, like, you take all the excuses out of it. Everybody plays everybody once, and I think the way that they lay out who, they got 3 pools. The upper pool plays each other a couple times, and then they go into the second pool a couple each times, and go in the bottom pool, and the bottom pool plays amongst themselves to move up. So I think that'll keep the parity of the league. I think you're going to find more of a true champion. I don't think that a Western team can limp in if that's what they're being accused of. I always thought the West has been really strong anyway. I never really bought into that theory, but right out of the gate, you're playing team once. You're playing a season series. Like you don't have an opportunity to play them again. For us, we play Panther City right out of the gate. That's a season series, and you're gonna the tiebreaker is head to head. So I think that in itself will really help to put meaning to each game throughout the whole season, because you're not like, we're going to play Saskatchewan 3 times and there's going to be a tiebreaker. Someone's going to get 2-1, right? Or 3-0. So you got to make sure you're sharp right from the beginning of the year. And I think that's a great job by the NLL. Sure, the travel adds to it, but I think if you want to put a really good product on the floor and it to be fair for everybody and to get a real true champion, I think this is the way to do it.
Now we're at the hour of 4:45, and I know that you have to get rolling unless you want to stick around for a couple.
I'll give you a couple more minutes. Yeah, I got to drive to the ridge. I'm going to get hammered in traffic anyway.
I was going to say also that you can see everybody, the fans, from a fan perspective. They get to see more of the,
Yeah.
We see all the time that there's a big star player and then everybody goes, oh, we don't play that guy. We don't play that team this season with that guy on that team. You don't have that issue now. Now all the best players go to all the different arenas.
Yeah, for sure. That'll be good. Definitely to be, the ability to grow the game, to have, Jeff T did come last year, but he's going to be here, and the Bandits haven't been in a while, so we're going to get to see some of their star power guys and some of the local guys like Fraser and Byrne. So I think from an aspect of side of just that competitive balance, I think you're right. I think just that the marketing side of lacrosse and just getting some of these other guys out in the communities that they're not normally in and get to see them live, I think it's just only going to grow the game more.
Do you think expansion's on the horizon? I look at all these rosters in preseason, and there's 35, 40 guys where at least 90% of the guys are NLL bona fide players. There's going to be a lot of guys looking for work in about a week and a half time. Do you think it's time for them to move forward with more expansion?
Truth be told, for me, I think you just kind of let it see where it is right now. And I know they wanted to go to the 16th team to try to have it a little bit more even, but now they've got rid of the East and the West division. So I'm all for expansion if you can do it right. I think that's the important. Those are there's guys in the National Lacrosse League that run the analytics. I think they've done a really good job over the years getting good ownership group. I think they got to make sure they get the right ownership group. You got to look at the demand in the certain areas, and I don't think it's something that you rush into. Sustainability for teams in the National Lacrosse League is super, super important. I like the fact that some of the NHL teams are getting involved and staying involved, and I think that's big. And so I think. Is there room for expansion? Yeah, I think it'd be great for the league. I would, but they got to make sure they do it right.
And by right, is loading a team, putting a team that's successful in a new market a good idea?
Potentially, you never want to start bouncing around and moving from spot to spot, but putting an established team like Halifax moves over there, and that really helps. So yeah, there is some value to that, but again. The position of the National Lacrosse, they got guys in there that are making those decisions. But I do think that an established team can help in certain areas. But it also you end up having an established team come back to Vancouver, where maybe it could have been better if they started from ground zero and they started drafting all over again. So there's both sides of the coin, really.
Yeah, and then there's the situation from the coaches to everybody that's with the team. They all have to move or not.
Or not, yeah.
Yeah. This unbox thing that the NLL is started up, and now we got the Toronto New York game in Laval. Do you think it's testing the waters?
I do. I think it is. It was in Montreal before, and it just didn't quite get her done there. And I think they are. I think that's a good idea. I like the showcase. I know that Calgary's playing Saskatchewan up in Moose Jaw. Anytime you can have those games and just play in like a maybe not so much a neutral site area for as far as Saskatchewan goes, but that Quebec game, I think it's great. I think that just get more eyes on our great game and more people involved and just seeing what the appetite's like. I think it's a great move. I'm a huge supporter of that, and you just want to kind of see how things fly there, and you pick the right venues, and then it's kind of a test thing. So I think it's a great idea.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule between regular work and between building this team, because I really expect big things from it, just the whole culture change of everything, and as well as your track record. And I just see great things for them, and I wish you all the success.
I really appreciate that, guys, and thanks for growing the game and getting people's messages out there. And it's guys like you that really, really help a lot in the media and asking great questions and having great guests on there. I think that's super important. So keep doing what you guys do, because it doesn't go unnoticed.
Well, thank you for allowing us to strong arm you into giving us a couple more minutes.
Yeah, I'll go either of those.
You want to do another 5? No, just kidding. Just kidding. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this. It was really a pun intended electric interview. I really got a charge out of it.
That's great.
Enjoy your meeting.
Thanks a lot.
By the way, he's an electrician. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Thank you for doing this. Of course, thank you, Curt and Gary. And of course, for Gary Groob and Curt Malawsky, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk, seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Lacrosse Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Don't forget, Candid Frank Stanisci, 10:30 on YouTube. See you next time, everybody. Pick a stick up, please. Give it a try.